Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Understanding Spirit of Anatomy on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, we continue the revision exercise on the abdominal cavity contents. If you've not watched the part 1, you can get the video link, and of course you watch it. In this revision, what I'm going to do is I have some questions for you, okay, some MCQs. I'm going to help you get the correct answers, and then of course those which are incorrect, we justify why they are not correct. And so without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. And we begin this revision exercise with question number 1. And question number 1 says, which of the following is inaccurate? Option A says, while the lesser curvature of the stomach gives attachment to the greater omentum, the greater curve of the stomach gives attachment to lesser omentum. Now, this is a wrong statement. The reason is simple, because lesser curve of the stomach, yes, is lesser, and therefore it should give attachment to rather lesser omentum, that peritoneal fold, and then greater curvature of the stomach should rather give attachment or provide surface, okay, for attachment by what we call the greater omentum. So already this is the answer because the wrong statement. But let's move on and look at other options. Option B says, while the right gastric vein drains directly into portal vein, short gastric veins are tributaries of splenic vein. Yeah, that's a very true statement. Even short gastric arteries, are branches of what we call the splenic artery. Therefore, their veins, that's the short gastric veins draining what we call the fundus of the stomach, are also going to drain into what we call the splenic vein. That is why short gastric veins have become what we call tributaries of what we call the splenic vein. However, if I take something like the right gastric vein, the left gastric vein, those ones will drain directly into what we call the hepatic portal vein. Yes, that's a portal vein, that's true. Now, option C says, right gastroomental vein is a tributary of superior mesenteric vein. That's also a very true statement. I'll show you that. Now, option D says, while the fundus of the stomach is related with the left lung via the diaphragm, yes, the left dome of the diaphragm, the lateral part of the body of the stomach is related with what we call the lyinal organ. Now, that's a true statement, okay? What you should know is that, yes, although the stomach is not intimately associated with the left lung, okay, because the stomach is more toward the left side, what we find is that it is associated with what we call superiorly to what we call the left dome of the diaphragm. So yes, indirectly is able to isolate it via what we call the diaphragm, left dome of the diaphragm. That's true. Then the lateral part of the body of the stomach is related to what we call the lyinal organ. Now, when we say lyinal organ, we are talking about the spleen. And so that is why, yes, this one will be a true statement. Now, option E says, while the pancreatico-lyinal, okay, so whenever I say pancreatico-lyinal, the word lyinal, yes, has to do with the spleen. Therefore, I can replace this one and I say pancreatico-splenic, okay, group of lymph nodes drains, the proximal half of the greater curvature of the stomach. The superior gastric group of lymph nodes drains the proximal portion of the lesser curvature of the stomach. This is a very true statement. I'll show you that kind of drainage as far as the stomach is concerned. So let's justify the options. So there we are. Now, this is the stomach. I'll show you that the stomach, yes, will be continuing, yes, from where esophagus, ended. Okay, so the esophagus meets the stomach over here. Okay, and along what we call the right border of the esophagus, yes, we have this. Okay, this is the lesser curve of the stomach, lesser curve of the stomach, or lesser curvature of the stomach. And that lesser curvature of the stomach, yes, will give attachment to this ligament that we call it greater omentum. Now, if I go along what we call the left border of the esophagus, yes, go to the fundus, okay, from that region, yes, downwards to the body, so the parallels, then this portion is what we call the greater curve of the stomach. And greater curve of the stomach, yes, is giving attachment to the policeman, okay, of the abdomen, okay, that hangs in like an apron, okay, which, you know, I mean, we can call it, yes, that's the apron or the policeman of the abdomen. You know, surgeons will call it as such because of course, its role in, you know, restricting spread of infection. Okay, so this is what we call greater omentum, getting attachment point to what we call the, what we call greater curvature of what we call the stomach, greater curvature of the stomach. So that is that one. So just by way of just showing you, yes, I told you that this is the esophagus. From along the right border of the esophagus, okay, we are going to have what we call lesser curvature of the stomach, okay, and then getting attachment there is what we call, this lesser omentum, okay. This lesser omentum, yes, it's actually coming from what we call ventral, mesogastrum, and you know this lesser omentum is having two parts, okay. This broad part, okay, which is attaching the lesser curvature of the stomach to the liver, is what we are calling, hepatogastric ligament or gastrohepatic ligament, okay, hepatogastric ligament. And then the thicker portion which attaches, from the liver to the first part of the duodenum, okay, being very thick, and therefore, you know, because of course it containing the portal triad, you know, namely hepatic portal vein, okay, hepatic artery proper, and of course common bile duct, okay. That one, yes, is what we call the hepatoduodenal ligament, and that's the greater omentum, having a lot of immune elements, okay, lymphocytes, you know, macrophages, all those ones are there to help, you know, restrict, you know, infections. Now, although we've not done the understanding spirit of anatomy regarding, you know, the arterial supply, what happens is that, yes, the veins. Now, one thing you should know, portal vein, which is formed behind this neck, okay, of the pancreas. Now, this is the pancreas, this is the neck of the pancreas, which is roughly, yes, 8 centimeters long, okay. That's the portal vein. Now, what you should know is that the hepatic portal vein, yes, is formed by the confluence of two main vessels. On these two main vessels, yes, are what we call superior mesenteric vein, and then of course inferior mesenteric vein. So superior mesenteric vein and inferior mesenteric vein are the main tributaries of what we call portal vein. But what we see is that the splenic vein, which is this one, if we talk about portal vein, is formed, yes, actually by what we call the confluence of what we call superior mesenteric vein and the splenic vein. Because what happens is that draining from an inferior level is what we call inferior mesenteric vein. That one drains into what we call splenic vein. This is the splenic vein, and this is superior mesenteric vein meeting to form the hepatic portal vein. Okay, and what we are saying is that inferior mesenteric vein, yes, is actually even draining into what we call the splenic vein, and then it continues as splenic vein, yes, joins what we call superior mesenteric vein, and then forms what we call the portal vein. Okay, now for this question, what I'm interested in showing you, I'm not going through every bit of it, but what I'm interested in showing you is that if I take some like short gastric veins, okay, which, you know, they are also tributaries, okay, of what we call this splenic vein. Short gastric veins draining the fundic part of the stomach, yes, they are what we call tributaries of what we call splenic vein. However, if I take, you know, the left and even the right, okay, gastric veins, they drain directly into, that's why we say they are draining directly into what we call the portal vein. But short gastric veins are draining into splenic vein, and then from splenic vein into portal vein. It's not direct. Yes, apart from that, what you should know is that the portal vein, which is formed, divides into, of course, left branch and of course right branch. And coming from the right branch will be the cystic vein. So these are some, bits that you should know. Apart from these ones, what you should also know is that, yes, the superior pancreaticoduodenal vein, also drains directly into the portal vein. There will be one question which, I will explain that one. So there was a question, or there was a statement, okay, that the right gastro-omental vein, okay, this one, right gastro-omental vein, is also called right gastro-epiploid vein, okay. Yes, that one, you can see that it is draining directly into what we call superior mesenteric vein. So it's a direct tributary of what we call superior mesenteric vein, just like inferior pancreatico-duodenal vein, okay, both of them draining directly, into what we call superior mesenteric vein. So by way of looking at some relations that we talked about, that the stomach, now this is the diaphragm, okay, this is the diaphragm, and this is the stomach, this is the liver, okay, this is the lyinal organ, which is the spleen. So there was a statement that yes, the fundic part, okay, there's a fundic part of the stomach is related, with the left lung via what we call, via what we call the diaphragm. But this portion mainly is the left dome of the diaphragm. Now over there will be this kind of ligament, which we call it, gastrophrenic, from the stomach, gastro, and phrenic has to do with the diaphragm, because of course we know that the diaphragm is supplied by superior inferior phrenic arteries, and of course its innervation is coming from the phrenic nerves. So anything phrenic has to do with the diaphragm. So there's gastrophrenic ligament connecting the fundus of the stomach, to the diaphragm. Then to the lateral aspect, okay, this lateral aspect of the body of the stomach is related to this lyinal organ, and that is of course the spleen, yes, related over there. And there will be another ligament. We will see these things in greater detail in subsequent videos that we'll be doing. Yes, that is what we call gastrosplenic, or you can say gastrolyinal ligament. Okay, so that is what I want you to know over here. Now, with respect to the lymphatic drainage, then what will happen is that if I take the entire stomach, then I can, with an imaginary line, yes, drawn, okay, so that I divide it into two main aspects. Yes, the one which is closer to the lesser curve of the stomach, and the one in line with the greater curve of the stomach. The one in line with greater curve of the stomach, I divide it into two, so that I have the superior half, or the proximal half, and the distal half. Okay, and the one, yes, that is also draining the lesser, the area toward the lesser curve of the stomach, I have the proximal half and the distal half. Now when I take the area which is in relation with the greater curve of the stomach, then what will happen is that lymph, okay, will drain eventually. For the proximal half, it will drain, because the spleen is here. So the group of lymph nodes over there, yes, they are called pancreatico-lyinal or pancreatico-splenic group of lymph nodes. Now the distal half, around where the greater curve of the stomach, yes, they will drain eventually into what we call inferior gastric subpyloric group of lymph nodes. Inferior, that's inferior to the stomach, gastric subpyloric, below where the pylorus is. Okay, and then if it is the proximal half of the area in relation to the lesser curve of the stomach, yes, they are going to what we call, that's above, so superior gastric group of lymph nodes. And then of course at the lower portion we have what we call the supra pyloric group of lymph nodes. It's above the pylorus, so supra pyloric group of lymph nodes. So please, you have to get these ones. Yes, so we go to question number 2, and question number 2 says, which of the following is inaccurate? Now option A says inferior to the stomach is the gastrocolic ligament, anterior to the stomach is diaphragm, while superior relation of the stomach is gastrophrenic ligament. We've seen some of these things. Yes, this is a true statement. We will justify that. Option B says roughly 25 centimeters long, the duodenum forms the first part of the small intestine, and not duodenum, once again, forms the first part of the small intestine, sandwiched between the stomach and the jejunum. That is a very true statement. I'll justify that. Option C says the duodenum is a secondary retroperitoneal organ. Yeah, that's a very true statement, except the the initial portion of the first part of the stool, duodenum, yes, duodenum. The remaining portions, yes, they are retroperitoneal, but actually they are secondary retroperitoneal organs. I will explain the concept of retroperitoneal organs to you. Option D says structures that relate posteriorly to the first part of the duodenum include gastroduodenal artery, common bile duct, portal vein, and head of pancreas. Yes, these ones are related, posteriorly behind what we call, the first part of the duodenum. We will see that. Now, option E. Now, here the issue with the first part, yes, the head of the pancreas usually lies medial to what we call the second part of the duodenum. So this one, yes, makes this statement inaccurate, but we justify these ones. Option E says relating anteriorly to the third part of the duodenum include the superior mesenteric vessels. That is a true statement. I will justify these ones for you. So there we are. This is showing you. Now this is the diaphragm, this is the stomach, this is the spleen, okay, and then this is the liver, and then the diaphragm, okay, above them, okay. So what we see is that this is the stomach, and therefore by way of looking at some inferior relation, if you look at what thing is found below the stomach, you will see that there's a ligament. This is the colon. So there's a ligament which connects the stomach to the colon, and that one is part of the greater omentum. We call it gastrocolic ligament. So it lies inferior to it, no problem. But lying a bit superior, but even comes anterior a bit. So the diaphragm not only forms superior relation with the stomach, but also even turns and comes anteriorly. So it means that the diaphragm also forms anterior relation with what we call the stomach. While yes, we also see this ligament. This ligament is called gastrophrenic. There's the diaphragm, so gastrophrenic ligament. Okay, will form superior relation of the stomach. So it means that if I look at what we call lateral relation, yes, we also see this ligament which connected to what we call the spleen, and that is what we call gastrosplenic or gastrolineal ligament. So if I look at this, although I'm not looking at the veins, this is the esophagus, and then it continues. It has become dilated as the stomach. And then beginning from the pylorus of the stomach, yes, we have what we call, the duodenum. Okay, so that's the duodenum. And then the duodenum then continues as the jejunum. Therefore, this roughly 25 centimeter, long, tubular organ, just like the esophagus, so it's also 25 centimeters long. Yes, it's sandwiched between the stomach superiorly and the jejunum inferiorly. Okay, so that is that one. We are not going into the venous drainage. We will look at that one later. Now, we said that the duodenum is a secondary retroperitoneal organ. Now, before I explain the concept of retroperitoneal, structures of course, intraperitoneal or even extraperitoneal structures, then what will happen is that I have to explain what we mean, give you some examples. Yes, if you look at the major intraperitoneal organs, yes, what you should know is that generally they are suspended by what we call mesentery. So including stomach, liver, gallbladder, except some areas, spleen, first part of duodenum, tail of pancreas. Okay, now the reason why, yes, the stomach is intraperitoneal, no problem. Liver, except its bare area. Gallbladder, except that portion which is, intimately associated with the liver. The spleen, the duodenum, its first part. Now, the first part of the duodenum is intraperitoneal because the stomach, it continues with the stomach. Stomach is intraperitoneal because of its close proximity. If you look at the tail of the pancreas, yes, goes to the hilum of the spleen, and therefore, that's why it's intraperitoneal. If you look at jejunum, yes, and ileum, they have mesentery proper. They are suspended, in the abdomen, attached the posterior abdominal wall by what we call mesentery proper. Yes, so it's very mobile, intraperitoneal. If you look at appendix, having its mesoappendix, intraperitoneal, transverse colon having its mesocolon, sigmoid colon having its mesocolon. So these ones are intraperitoneal organs. They had mesentery, yes, during development. They never lost it, and therefore these structures we tend to see them to be mobile, and they are highly visible once you get into the abdomen. Then the next one will be the secondary retroperitoneal organs. Now the word is secondary means that originally they were intraperitoneal organs, but they lost their mesentery during development, and they will include the remaining portions of the duodenum. Okay, then it will also include, yes, we talked about the head of the pancreas, its neck, body, except the tail, because it said the tail will be an intraperitoneal organ. Then we also have what we call ascending colon, yes, descending colon, upper portion of the rectum. These ones, the colon, ascending colon, descending colon, even the cecum, they are in close relation with the other portions of the colon. And that is why they may have some, but at the end of the day, they lost it during development. Now, for the primary retroperitoneal organs, they never had mesentery. Mesentery is supposed to make you mobile. They never had mesentery. So they will include the kidneys, the suprarenal glands or the adrenal glands, the ureters, yes, all those structures in the posterior abdominal wall. And those ones are usually hidden. They are fixed and they are usually hidden as well. Lower rectum, anal canal. So let me just explain this concept to you. Now, assuming this is my small intestine, okay, or any intraperitoneal organ, then it will, connected. This is that organ. It is connected to the posterior abdominal wall via mesentery, and the mesentery will ensure that it becomes mobile. It becomes mobile, and it is also visible in what we call, once you cut through the abdomen, you reveal the greater sac. Yes, we are going to see these organs. These organs are what we call intraperitoneal organs. Now, in the case, so they are mesentery during development or whatever age, they still maintain it. However, in the case of what we call secondary retroperitoneal organs, yes, they had mesentery, but they lost it during development. And therefore, what happens is that they are, one portion of, they are, what do you call it, organ, yes, is hidden. Okay, now this one you can see entirely everything, but this portion is hidden. This portion is hidden. Okay, and therefore what happens is that, yes, you're able to see this portion, but the posterior aspect you are not able to see it, and it is also fixed. So what happens is that, yes, secondary retroperitoneal organs, or yes, although they are visible, okay, they are immobile because they don't have the mesentery again. Then in the case of primary retroperitoneal organs, now what you see is that during development, nothing, no mesentery, and therefore they get buried, okay, go behind. Okay, so it means that when I open up the abdomen, because they don't have mesentery, they will be immobile. Again, they will also be hidden. Okay, they will not be visible. So that is what you have to understand. Yes, before I will look at the relations of the duodenum. Now what you should know is that duodenum will have 4 parts. This is the first part. The first part is also called the superior part. Okay, superior part, and under radiograph, that's the one we see as what you call duodenal cup and not any other thing else. Okay, and then here, that one is roughly 5 centimeters long, and it continues with what we call the pylorus of the stomach. Remember, the vertebral level is at L1, and then the portion which is roughly 7.5 centimeters, okay, comes down from L1 all the way to L3. Okay, all the way to L3, and this is that portion where the head of the pancreas will fit here. Okay, and the other openings, major duodenal papilla, minor duodenal papilla, yes, all those ones will open over here. And then at L3, that becomes, so this second part can also be called the descending part, it's descending. And then the third part can be called horizontal part. Okay, and that one is the longest part, and it's roughly 10 centimeters long. 10 centimeters long. And then from there we have what we call the fourth part, which ascends from L3 all the way to L2, and it's the lowest as far as the length is concerned, just 2.5 centimeters long. Now what we are saying is that from second to third parts, these ones are retroperitoneal organs, and then the first part, its initial portion, becomes intraperitoneal organ. Now just like anything which curves, okay, there will be some fleshes, and this one moving from the first part to the second part, yes, it bends on itself, and that's why we have the superior duodenal flexure. And then moving from what we call the second part to the third part, there will be a second flexure. That's what we call inferior duodenal flexure. Okay, so that is what you have to know over here. Now, by way of showing you, yes, there was a question like you should tell the relations, okay, the posterior relations of what we call the first part of the duodenum. So the posterior relations of the first part of the duodenum, yes, apart from relating to what we call the lesser sac or the omental bursa, yes, it also relates to what we call some portion of the pancreas. Okay, some portion of the pancreas will be related there, but it will not be that kind of significant. Then what happens is that, yes, even the bile duct, because at the common it will be coming down, okay, this way, so it will be running behind it, okay, to be coming and then to be eventually opening the second part. So it runs behind the first part so that I get access to what we call the second part. Therefore, yes, we also add what we call the portal vein, which form behind it. Portal vein is roughly 8 centimeters long. Yes, that one will also be relating posterior to it. And then of course, not only that, the hepatic artery proper. So essentially, these portal triad structures are running behind what we call the first part of the duodenum. Then we also add what we call the gastroduodenal artery. Okay, gastroduodenal artery will also relate to it posteriorly. So that is what you have to know. You can look at the other relations later. Now for the third part of the duodenum, as the question says, okay, we're looking at the anterior relations of the third part of the duodenum. And third part of the duodenum is what we call the horizontal part, or some people will call it transverse part, but it's better we call it horizontal part. So running in front, okay, in front of it are these vessels, and these vessels are what we call the superior mesenteric vessels, the artery and vein, superior mesenteric vessels. And not only that, even what we call it, course of what we call the jejunum. Some course of the jejunum will run anterior to this horizontal part of the duodenum. And then even the roots of the mesentery proper, so you have to know that. So let's go to question number 3, and question number 3 is our last question. The question says, which of the following is not true? Option A says the posterior relations of the horizontal portion of the duodenum include right psoas major muscle, right ureter, and right gonadal vessels. Yes, these are very true statement. Duodenum is more toward the right side, and therefore the relations will be more to the relations will be to the right structures of those structures which are behind, okay, which are retroperitoneal, okay, the psoas major muscle, the right ureter, the right gonadal vessels. Those ones will be related posterior to it. That's true. Now option B says the head of pancreas and common bile duct relates to a descending part of the duodenum medially. So the descending part of the duodenum is the second part of the duodenum, and therefore no doubt that is related to the head part of the of the duodenum, okay, as well as of course the common bile duct medially. So I'll show you that. Option C says the hepatopancreatic ampulla of Veta is formed from the confluence of the common bile duct and the major pancreatic duct of Santorini. There's a wrong statement. The reason is that, yes, we know the hepatopancreatic ampulla, or also called the ampulla of Veta, yeah, that dilated portion, okay, is formed actually by the confluence of what we call common bile duct and major pancreatic duct, no problem, and they both will open in the major duodenal papilla. Okay, and we know this ampulla is guarded by what we call the sphincter of OD. But what makes this statement wrong is that major pancreatic duct is called duct of Wilson and not duct of Santorini. Duct of Santorini is actually minor pancreatic or the accessory pancreatic duct, which opens in what we call the minor duodenal papilla, okay, above the major duodenal papilla. And that one, yes, is not going to have any, connection with common bile duct. There's no confluence forming that. So this statement is wrong because of just this one. Now, option D says the fourth part of the duodenum is seen on radiographs as duodenal cap and it is most susceptible to peptic ulcer. Yes, I've already told you that is the first part and not the fourth part. Okay, and the most susceptible area to duodenal ulcer should be the part where it's very close to the stomach. Okay, and that portion should be the first part of the duodenum. So this statement, yes, is wrong. So already we have two answers, and that is option C and D. Now for option E, the suspensory ligament of Treves is attached superiorly to the right cruce of the diaphragm. This is a very true statement. Suspensory ligament of Treves. I will see that. So there we are. If you look at the posterior relations, okay, of what we call this one, the posterior relations of what we call the third part of the duodenum, okay, is more towards the right side. Therefore, the relations will be more towards the right, and you include what we call the psoas major muscle to the right, right ureter to the right, okay, the right gonadal vessels, okay, to the right. Yes, even apart from that, the inferior vena cava, talk about the abdominal aorta, they are all behind, they are all retroperitoneal. Therefore, they will lie on them. Okay, so that is that one. And even apart from that, some portion of what we call inferior mesenteric artery, Then, if I look at the second part, this is the first part of the duodenum. Okay, first part of the duodenum, yes, some portion of the head, yes, lies anterior, posterior to it, no problem, but it's very little. Then this is what we call the descending portion of, or the second part of the duodenum. So as you can see, there's this papilla, okay, which is guarded by the sphincter of OD, because the combined structure over here, forms what we call the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And that combined structure, yes, one of them, yes, will be coming from what we call the common bile duct, and then one from what we call the major pancreatic duct, and they both open over here. Okay, and remember that major pancreatic duct is known as duct of Wilson and not duct of Santorini, because duct of Santorini, okay, is the accessory pancreatic duct which opens in what we call the minor duodenal papilla, above where the major duodenal papilla, opened. Okay, so that is that one. And then one thing that I want you to also know is that the head of the pancreas, okay, will lie medial, to what we call the descending portion of what we call the second part of the stomach. Not only that, the common bile ducts, okay, the major pancreatic ducts, yes, they will all lie medial to what we call the second part of the stomach, of the duodenum. And then if you look at this, where the duodenum, okay, joins the jejunum, there's, yes, a bend again, so there's a flexure, and this flexure is therefore called, yes, duodenojejunal flexure. And duodenojejunal flexure, yes, marks that junction, okay, of what we call the duodenojejunal junction. Because continue from that junction or that flexure will be the jejunum, and before that flexure we have the duodenum, actually the fourth part of the duodenum. Now attached to that flexure, to what we call the right cruce of the diaphragm, is what we call the ligament of Treves, suspensory ligament of Treves. So that is that one that you should know. Okay, it's actually going to attach to what we call the right cruce of the diaphragm. Now remember that this suspensory ligament of Treves, okay, it's actually the one which is able to help us distinguish between the upper GIT. So anything above this ligament of trees is upper GIT, and anything below is what we call lower GIT. So attaching superiorly is till the diaphragm. All right, so I hope you find this revision exercise helpful. Yes, subscribe to the channel so that you can get the remaining ones in our future editions. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.